In a world where superpowers, other known as quirks, were the main staple in society, all that mattered was that you had a strong quirk. But what would happen to those people who didn't have a strong quirk? Well, obviously enough, they couldn't become heroes. They'd be restricted in society and would have to get a regular job that most kids would not look up to, well, more or less doing in their future lives. And this was the predicament that Izuku Midoriya was put directly into. He went to the doctors one day and he got his quirk. And his quirk was nothing to be, well, impressed by. His quirk was simple and not effective by any means.
Yes, Miss Midoriya. It seems your son's quirk is to hold things very tightly. Here's the thing. If you're talking about a weapon, a pencil, or anything like that, he'll most likely not drop it. He has enhanced grip strength and such like that, and it seems that he has a mild, well, stamina increase. But other than that, your boy doesn't have much more.
Oh, really? Oh, okay, doctor, thank you. Izuku and his mother then leave. Obviously, Izuku is waiting out in the waiting room, but his mother doesn't want to break the boy's heart to say what his quirk is, but she ends up being forced to say what it is exactly, explaining that it has something to do with his grip strength. Izuku is saddened by this. He's sad that he won't have a quirk like his role model, All Might, but he tells his mom that it doesn't matter, that he'll give everything and give it his all to make sure that he can become a hero. And his mom smiles, saying that, well, it's gonna be tough and it's gonna be a really hard journey, but she knows that if he trains hard and works hard, that he can do it. Immediately, Izuku begins asking of various ways that he could train and get stronger, but obviously Inko believes that he needs to wait until he's a little bit older. But that day eventually comes. Izuku is about, I would say, 7 to 8 years old, and he asks to be put into, well, sword lesson classes. The first thing he could think of is using a sword with his grip strength and extra stamina. If he can't drop his sword, then, well, maybe he can use a sword in battle. So he begins learning the ways of the sword. From katana to longsword to even some spears, he begins to learn weaponry. But at the end of the day, he's just a boy. He's just a kid, and his process of learning all this stuff will take a long time. There's masters that will literally teach and learn and work on this craft for years, 20 years, 30 years. Izuku doesn't have that type of time, but he would work on it every single day. Every year would pass on by, and Izuku would learn more and more in terms of his swordsmanship. Eventually he was in middle school, but all he knew was just sword training and training in terms of any martial arts he could learn and stuff like that. He didn't really know much more than just those things. He didn't really have friends. This is all he wanted. This is all he cared about. Having a quirk in general, or at least having a weak quirk, made him realize that he needs to work harder than everybody else. In another universe, Izuku was quirkless, but he didn't realize that hard work, well, at least while he was quirkless, needed pure hard work. But this Izuku is different. He knows that hard work equals results. And well, he's going to see that very soon. Izuku goes to school, and his teacher begins explaining that, well, he would hand out more or less job applications and for what people would want to do, but he knows that everyone wants to be a hero. But Izuku doesn't even mind hearing this. He doesn't care. He just knows that he needs to work hard to get there, All the other students begin to kind of laugh, saying that Izuku has no chance, but he just ignores them. Not one word is spoken. In his discipline of swordsmanship, he realized that he cannot let anybody else dictate what he personally knows he can do in the future, and this is allowing him to respect himself, not deal with these bullies like Bakugo Katsuki and various other people that are going to come their way or his way. He doesn't worry about it. He just worries about himself. That day is like a blur to him. He doesn't care what the teacher says. He doesn't care what anybody else says. He's going to try and get into UA. And try he damn well will. But that comes with even more training. The art of swordsmanship is no easy one, and his master tells him this over and over again. His master, by the name of Gozen, would tell him stories of the samurai, would tell him that many were weak, scrawny samurai, and many were bulky, strong, and fit, but those skinny samurai would always prove to, show their worth. Their level of, swordsmanship was bar none, and it seems like, they had an extra bit of action to them. It seems like they were able to control their breathing to the point that they would fend off people in masses. 1 versus 5, 1 versus 6, 1 versus 7. Gozen explained to Izuku that no matter the way he looked, hard work would always pay off. He grabs a book and begins showing the young boy that back a long time ago, there was breathing styles that would more or less allow people a long time ago to do very unhuman-like things, would allow humans to defeat many people, maybe even armies, and maybe even beings that were stronger than some said regular humans. Gozen begins explaining this, but Izuku asks if he can learn something like that, if he can learn a breathing style that would help him, and Gozen smiles and says he loves his optimism, but that will most likely never happen. Those styles were lost to time. All that there is left is books. Books of these breathing styles that were said to be, myths of some sorts. Gozen says that the people, the scrawny samurai that did fight, that fought among armies, that beat 7 people at one time, were real. But that doesn't mean that the breathing styles of legend were also real. These fighters were a different, version of a samurai. A samurai that had no quit in him. A samurai that was willing to die on his own blade if he saw fit. Gozen explains that those breathings may not even exist, but if they do, he'll hopefully be able to teach Izuku one day one of those breathing styles. Izuku is saddened by this, but thinks that there has to be more. He wants to look more into this, but it's not like he has time. He needs to train for the UA entrance exam, and frankly, he doesn't know if he'll be even able to fend a chance. But he's gonna try anyways. He doesn't care. He'll give it his all, and that's all that matters to him. So, the 10 months of training over this time happens. Izuku is in his own world. He doesn't care about anything else. All he cares about is passing. And that leads him to studying hard and working really hard in hopes of maybe one day unlocking a breathing style. But even Gozen reminds him that having optimism is great, but chasing a unicorn that may or may not exist is, outlandish. That keep things in perspective, to make sure that you can keep a frame on everything that is in front of you. Izuku nods and says that he'll stop, looking into this so much, but Gozen says that that's not exactly what he wants him to do. Yes, keep it in mind. It may come true, but stay in reality the most you possibly can. Izuku thanks him And well, the time of the entrance exam then arrives. The entrance exam for UA High School, the most prestigious, high school in Japan. At least for heroes, for that sake. He arrives and, President Mike is there to greet them. He begins explaining the exam and tells them all to go do their written exam, in which Izuku is able to do pretty easily, but that wasn't the threat at hand, it was the practical. What would the practical be in store for Izuku? A man or a boy that only has a sword at his hip with no styles of breathing and no enhancement of his body. He has slightly better stamina than the average human, but why does it matter? He walks out to the gate, and actually he gets berated by some blue-haired boy that's saying that he can't have a weapon, but he said that he got it cleared a long time ago for the entrance exam, and that to not bother him, that he has business to attend to. And when the gates swing open, Izuku runs out of the gates, trying his best to slash and bash as many robots as possible. But when he strikes the robots, it's really hard to break them. He's able to destroy a 1-point robot with a lot of struggle, a 2-point with a lot of time wasted, and a 3-point, with almost all the time wasted. He quickly realizes that his quirk's limitations are, presenting itself. That he can grip his sword as hard as he wants, but when he tries to slash into something, if he's not strong enough, he's not strong enough. And he realizes that very quickly. The exam is then over. It's over just like that. Izuku didn't even worry about the 0-pointer. It's not even like he can do anything to it. And he knows he did not pass the exam. He may have obviously passed in the written, but if he can't slice a robot, then what is he truly good for? He puts his sword away and is frustrated, visibly frustrated. He begins to walk home, and he doesn't go home that night though. His mother was worried about him. Phone call after phone call, nothing. Izuku is at a nearby park where he remembers his childhood. Remembers the time with his old best friend Katsuki Bakugo. Remembers when they would talk about getting their quirks and what they would be doing and what they would do, and that it would be amazing. Izuku pulls out his sword and begins swinging it, and realizes that this sword is it's not good enough. No, it's not the sword, it's him. He's not good enough. He slams the sword into the ground, and it stakes into the ground like a lightning rod, and he stands beside it. He gets down on both knees, and he begins to, more or less meditate. He looks at the moon and begins thinking that this is horrible. That everything he worked for all his entire life meant nothing. How could that be? How could he always fall behind? It's as if he was quirkless. That's what he is. Hard work doesn't always, work out for you. Izuku began to get frustrated and goes to pull his sword out of the ground, but he yanks on it, and he can't. He tries again, and again, and again, but it feels like someone's holding it down, and he looks up to see a man with 6 eyes staring at him with a purple and black cloak on. He seems like he's misty, as if he's not actually there, like a spirit. He looks at the man, and the man doesn't talk. The man just points up at the moon and taps Izuku on the heart. Izuku is confused. Izuku doesn't know what's happening, but he doesn't realize that this man is the last wielder of what they know as moon breathing. He's paid his dues, and he's went through his own reckoning, from trying and killing human after human to becoming one of the top demons in the past lives of what they don't realize. This man was a former samurai, but not just a samurai. He was an actual demon, a slayer of other demon slayers. This man was maybe trained by the samurais, but was not one when he died. He was a demon, a monster, someone so strong that they were almost willing to conquer the entire world for the sake of the demons. But he wants to repent, and his repent will be within Izuku. He pats Izuku on the head, and Izuku doesn't know what's going on. He just looks at the man's sword, and then looks at his. The man looks at Izuku with his 6 eyes as he begins to change. He begins to change and look like a normal human, and begins to talk. You know, giving up doesn't really suit a samurai. It didn't suit the demon slayers, and it, well, shouldn't have suited me. I gave up a long time ago. That's why I looked like that before. What you're seeing now is my human form, or well, the ghost of it. You, my boy, have worked yourself to the bone, but you lack something. In this world, I heard there are superpowers, quirks. Back in my day, there was none of this. There wasn't even, well, close to this. These powers were not given to you, they were earned. And I can tell you that from experience. This power that I had as a demon, though, was a gift. Was, well, what I didn't know to be a curse as well. Now, I want you to be the successor. I want you to be the next wielder of moon breathing. Moon breathing? You're saying the breathing styles are real. The ones that I heard from the books, the flame, the water, the love, the sun? Yes. Moon breathing is an extension of sun breathing. They are, well, and cannot live without each other. Just like in this world. He waves his hand to the sky and begins to say that when the moon comes up, the sun must come down, but they're both present all around the world in various different times. That without each other, they'd mean nothing. But without the sun, they would be nothing. Yeah, I understand that if without the sun, we'd all be dead, but what does that have anything to do with it? What you don't understand is that sun breathing is not moon breathing, but moon breathing came from sun breathing. Sun breathing is the all-powerful, and it took me a long time to admit that. But I can teach you this, moon breathing, and you can learn from me, and you can become strong, Izuku Midoriya. You can become better than me, better than what I was going to be and what I was. Will you accept this? Izuku nods, saying that he'll do what he has to do to become his successor. He'll do whatever it takes to learn moon breathing. And, well, he smiles. Kokushibo tells Izuku that he will guide him in this journey of learning what is under the sun. The moon breathing style will be a hard one to grasp, but when he does, he'll be able to protect the ones he loves, and he'll be able to defeat those who taint this world. Well, how are we going to train? How am I going to learn? You'll learn from me. When you need help, I'll appear beside you, but I'm going to give you the blueprints to do so. There are books about my breathing, or more specifically, about sun breathing as well. That is where the extension happens. You'll learn about sun breathing and moon breathing. I could only teach you moon breathing. Unfortunately, myself, I could never master what my brother did. But you'll find these books and you'll learn, and you can teach others if you so choose, even your master. Maybe the student will show the master how it's truly done. But that is it for now, my boy. I will be seeing you very soon, and I hope
that you can follow down your own path and not be corrupted by the one that I tainted for myself. Now good luck."
The figure then dissipates. Izuku, now reinvigorated, now ready to push his limits even further beyond anything he has before. If he can learn moon breathing, maybe he can be a hero. Maybe he can save people just like him, just like All Might. Maybe, just maybe, Izuku will be able to recover what is left of, well, him getting into a hero school. And well, that's what we'll find out next time. Izuku Midoriya finally has the means of getting stronger. He felt stagnant and well in place for a long time, and he decided that he'd just try out for a regular hero school, something that, well, some school that isn't very popular by any means. So he does just that. He's able to get in with relative ease, being that these other hero schools don't have these amazing prospects like how UA does, or even Shuketsu High does. But that's beyond the point. Izuku just wants to learn, get better, and then eventually can put himself in the ranks of those higher ups, those higher up in terms of students. He knows that he can do it with the help of, well, moon breathing. One night he begins searching for the books on moon breathing, and he eventually finds them, bringing him back to his, well, current master. Gozen is shocked to find that, well, Izuku has the means of using a breathing style, one that their ancestors would have used a long time ago. And it's not only just a breathing style, it's moon breathing. The breathing of what, well, legend says that the last person that had it was a demon, someone unholy, someone that was trying to seek out godhood via the death of, well, what he believed to be the samurais. But that's beyond the point. It seems like Izuku has found his way, and has found the way to, well, absolute power in this society. He found his way to gain this power, and he begins training as soon as possible. Throughout this time, Izuku began to, well, go to classes and do normal hero stuff or hero school stuff, which wasn't anything insane by any means. Actually, he felt like it was detrimental that he was even going to this hero school, but he wasn't going to complain. He had to go somewhere in the meantime while he learned this moon breathing. And actually, during one of the night's training sessions, Kokushibo, well, showed up. He appeared in front of Izuku and began explaining the act of concentration breathing, the act that, well, is crucial to using moon breathing. The breath of, well, the moon and breathing styles derive from this concentration breathing that is used by many swordsmen. This breathing will allow you to do unhuman-like things, and, well, it can transcend the human body. Certain breathings will allow a sick man to dance through the freezing cold, will allow a human to go head to head with a rhinoceros. Certain breathings will allow a demon and a human to go head to head on equal footing. And Kokushibo makes this very apparent, that the first thing he needs to learn is this breathing. And once he does, he can truly learn the art of moon breathing. So the long and arduous process begins, but Izuku obviously seems like he's getting a hold of it quicker than anybody has ever thought. Anybody who would try to do moon breathing like this would struggle immensely. And don't get me wrong, Izuku is struggling, but his resolve is bigger, better than anybody else's. And he begins to pick up on moon breathing relatively quickly, learning some of actually the forms only months after the beginning of his training, learning the first 3 forms. First form, Dark Moon Evening Palace. Second form, Pearl Flower Moon Gazing. And third form, Loathsome Moon Chains. And well, these sword styles are extremely difficult, especially with the fact that they're based around a Kokoshibo who was more or less a demon at the time. But even with that said, these first couple breathing styles aren't too insane in terms of the stress on his body. It's really when he gets down to the ones that are deeper into the playbook. We're talking the 14th, the 16th forms is where Kokoshibo even says that Izuku may never be able to learn them because of the restrictions on his body. But Izuku says that's just fine, that this concentration breathing, training alone has helped him tremendously, that it's upped his stamina, upped his strength, upped his, concentration, upped his intelligence, everything you can think of. Concentration breathing has been a huge help, and Izuku feels that he is strong enough to do many things. And eventually this leads to a test at his hero school. They have basically grades: tier 3, tier 2, and tier 1. Think of UA as a tier 1 hero high school by every means of the imagination. Basically, you could call UA as a tier 1 A tier type of high school. But what he's in is more of like a low tier 3 type of hero high school, but with the proper lessons and the proper teachings and the proper tests, he can upgrade in the schools. And this is pretty blatantly obvious. Transfers are not of the abnormal, and it wouldn't be too far-fetched to think that Izuku could climb through the ranks of high schools, kind of like some sports athlete that would want to, head into a better high school after sharpening his skills playing football or basketball. Just like that, hero schools work very similar. And once Izuku begins sharpening his skills and actually passes the test flawlessly, especially using his moon breathing, he's able to step up to that tier 2 level of a high school, which is still not on the level of UA by any means of the imagination, but it definitely helps him in terms of getting, agency call-ups. And eventually, he actually gets one from a lower tier hero. And this hero's name is Manuel. Manuel is a very unknown hero. He's basically called the normal hero Manuel. He isn't known by many people, but he does have good experience in terms of hero work. And luckily Izuku can get just that. Manuel can show him the ropes, show him how to, properly patrol and things like that. At least Izuku believes this to be beneficial. And maybe this would be his way back up to, maybe even UA or a high tier school. And Izuku would be right. This would be a good way to start. And one day he begins his patrols. But Manuel says that he actually got a surprise, that someone from UA will actually be joining them. And that is, Tenya Ida. Ingenium's brother, is going to join them. They all eventually will meet up, and they begin to patrol in Hosu City. But the problem is, Izuku can sense something. He can see in Ida's eyes desperation, fear, anger, everything he's felt before. He's felt all of it. At one point, he felt useless. At another, he felt desperate. At another, he felt anger at the limitations he had. But what Ida is showing is a different type of anger. A different anger that Izuku personally may have never felt. Because his anger isn't based on someone that he's lost. His anger is based on his own shortcomings. This is different. Ida is ready to take someone's life, and Izuku can see that blatantly. His senses are going crazy in terms of Ida, eventually leading to the Hosu City attack. Multiple Nomus appear, and Izuku helps basically evacuate people as quickly as possible, but he then sees Ida run away, basically going to a certain area. But this place seemed like he knew someone would be there. Izuku helps as many people as possible, and Manuel begins saying that he doesn't know where Ida went, but Izuku says that he does. He dashes away faster than really Manuel can even keep up, and Manuel sighs, thinking that he took on two people that he really can't control because he, well, isn't strong enough. Izuku then finally makes it to an alleyway, and there he is. Tenya Ida, face down on the ground with the blade of the hero killer hovering above him. Izuku walks toward the hero killer and begins speaking. You know, he's just a kid. He's made mistakes, correct? Everyone has. Maybe give him one more chance. The hero killer looks at the boy and asks who does he think he is. Well, if you really want to know my name, it's Izuku Midoriya. But that doesn't really matter to you, right? I know you kill, well, fake heroes. The boy is no fake hero, he's a hero in training. Meaning he is no hero. You got that right. He is no hero. Have you seen what he was trying to do? Not very heroic. I understand that. But please allow him to repent. Maybe give him another chance. Give him another chance? See, you're spoken like a real hero. A hero that wants to save and reform people. I like you. I can see the struggle in your eyes, kid. But unfortunately, that can't happen. Stain goes to stab Ida through the back, but Izuku dashes in and blocks it, kicking him away. Damn, I didn't want to have to resort to this, but I guess I haven't fought someone with a sword in a while. I mean, outside my master. A swordsman! Now this is gonna be interesting. Let's see what you got, kid. Izuku begins to breathe deep, and his breath begins to show through the air, and an aura begins to be revealed around him. Izuku dashes in and clashes with Stain, and his speed is almost reminiscent to what Stain was able to, well, do himself. It's actually very similar. Their speed and agility and everything seems so similar, and Izuku isn't budging. His sword will not fall out of his hand, and well, that's frankly because of his quirk, but Stain doesn't know that. He thinks that whatever he's doing right now is obviously his quirk, but Izuku can keep up with Stain. One of the more, well, or one of the best tacticians in terms of fighting, and he's not even using his forms yet. Izuku then backs up and, well, proceeds to quickly draw his sword once again, slashing swiftly in a more horizontal motion, but also in a crescent shape, creating numerous crescent blades, basically slashing at Stain. First form, Dark Moon Evening Palace. Izuku more or less completely slashes into Stain, but doesn't kill him by any means. Stain is hurt but not dead, but Stain is impressed. He says that the kid that's in front of him now is definitely someone interesting, someone that has been training in, well, swordsmanship all his life, obviously. But kid, the thing you forget is that I'm a villain, or, well, that's what everyone thinks, and I don't play by the rules. Stain quickly throws small daggers at his feet and cuts Izuku slightly and licks his blood. Izuku now down. He cannot move and he might be out. He's sitting there and in shock. He can't move one muscle. He tries to even use recovery breathing to maybe neutralize what is happening, but he can tell that even with recovery breathing, it's not gonna fully work. It's not gonna put him, well, through this quirk that Stain is using. Stain looks at Izuku and puts the blade to his neck and smiles. It'd be such a waste to kill you. Frankly, I don't want to kill you. So I'm gonna kill your friend here, or whatever he is to you, and I'll give you the choice. Stain walks over to Ida and he's about to stab him, but a blast of fire comes out of nowhere and Shoto Todoroki arrives. It seems that Shoto knew that this was happening, but Izuku doesn't know anything, doesn't know these people, frankly doesn't know Ida either. He just was coincidentally involved with him. Shoto even asks what's going on, and Izuku explains to him and also introduces himself, He says that he doesn't know him, but he knows of him, a Todoroki, the son of Endeavor. You know, your friend here put us in a hole, a really deep one. Shoto shakes his head and tells Ida to hurry up and recover, and tells Izuku the same as he tries to hold off Stain. Izuku, continuously using recovery breathing, eventually pushes past the quirk that is activated upon him and then waits for an opening. Right when Stain jumps up to attack, Todoroki, he begins using another form. Moon breathing, second form, pearl flower moon gazing. Izuku then slices like crazy, several crescent-shaped slashes that more or less defend him from any attack that Stain is trying to hit Todoroki with, but then also sending a barrage of crescent-shaped blades right back at him. These hits, Stain takes the brunt of them. The fact that Stain didn't expect Izuku to recover as quickly as he did, and the fact that Todoroki is currently shooting fire at him right now, taking the entire hit of all the blades and also the fire attack, putting him out cold. Luckily, not too long after this, they're able to tie him up with some rope they found and also get Ida up and out of there. Endeavor and the rest of the heroes then finally arrive, and Izuku goes back to Manuel and apologizes for running off like that. It was really time sensitive, it was do or die, and frankly, he'd rather not let anybody die. Manuel is impressed. He says that he didn't expect this coming from someone from a hero school that is so unknown like the one he came from. And Izuku says that he's been training all his life and that he had to start from the bottom and hopefully he can work his way up to the top. And Manuel smiles and says that he'll make sure that he gets up there, that Izuku has proven more than enough to get to that point. They'll keep this under wraps, but Manuel explained that he'll put in a good word via other ways. And Izuku smiles and thanks him. And Manuel says, no, thank you. Without you, Ida would have been dead. And frankly, it would have been Manuel's fault. But that's beyond the point. Everything is cleaned up in Hosu City. Stain is then sent away. And finally, Izuku is gonna get the recognition he feels he deserves and he's been working for. But his training isn't over. He doesn't believe it will ever be over. He continues it. He wants to work harder and harder. And that's what he does. He works on his breathing forms, learning more and more breathing forms, just like how Kokoshiba wanted. Of course, there's going to be the limitations on these breathing forms because he is no demon, but he's going to be able to, show what he got in terms of, his raw output, even with just 3 breathing forms. And now that he's getting a couple more, he's going to get stronger and stronger in terms of his fight style. And after a couple more days of just going to his regular school, he gets a message from Nezu, Principal Nezu of UA, and he begins to explain that he saw that Izuku actually tried out for UA but wasn't close to getting in, and Manuel says that he's made insane progress, actually progress to the point that he probably outmatches most of the people at UA. Izuku says that he doesn't know that for sure yet, and he would hope so, but he still has a long way to go. After some more conversations with Nezu, he actually gets a word in, and Izuku is allowed to go to UA. He's actually gonna be admitted into either Class 1A or Class 1B. They're not exactly sure yet, but Izuku believes that he shouldn't be in Class 1A. And when Aizawa and Vlad King hear this, they're completely shocked. Why would anybody give up the idea of trying to get into Class 1A? But Izuku explains that he's basically made his way up from the lowest tier of high school. Any school that is not UA is probably lackluster, but he was at a school that nobody really cared. All of the people there were going to be and destined to be low tier heroes, and he believes that if Class 1B is for the quote unquote weaker of the students, he wants to go there. because he's always been able to prove that he'll be strong enough and ready when needed. So he wants to prove that in Class 1B. And Aizawa smirks at this and says that Vlad King got a lucky one, or a good one, because this one would have been in 1A. Aizawa tells him good luck and that they'll be obviously working together soon anyways, and Izuku nods, eventually leading to him meeting with Class 1A, and actually the final exams are upon them. Izuku doesn't actually have to participate in them because he's already taken some tests and other things like that, and they've tested him already, so they actually just consider that to be his entrance exam. And they're not telling him this, but they did hear about the fight with the hero killer, and frankly, if you're fighting the hero killer on your own, well, you'll be alright. So they decide that they're gonna just use that as his final exam, and well, that's gonna put us right to the forest training arc, or the forest training camp. Izuku obviously is getting to know Class 1B the best he possibly can, and this leads them to, well, arriving at the camp, and well, this is where the real training begins. The training that Izuku has been seeking for a long time will now bring him to this. How will Izuku fare against the, well, stars of UA? How will he compare to these future heroes? And will he, well, be strong enough to keep up? Or will he even be overwhelmed at the prospect of working with these people? We don't know, but we'll have to see in the next part. Now finally, Izuku has his first training session with UA. Vlad King basically just begins to explain everything that's going to occur. He begins explaining that their training session will consist of various things depending on their original skill set, and he begins to individually pick everybody out, but gets to Izuku and explains that he doesn't know much about him, but the best course of action would be either just sparring or fighting one of the other people that are there. So that's what Izuku does, fighting with, well, obviously Tiger and even sometimes Vlad King, and learning more and more. But obviously he's already done a ton of training on his own using his sword and various other things. And this continues on for a good while, actually a couple days. But this then eventually leads to something very tragic. Something very bad would occur. On the night of about their second day, they decide to do something called a test of courage, in which Izuku is out in the forest ready to scare, you could say, some Class 1A students. But this doesn't go according to plan. Actually, it goes the direct opposite. The entire forest lights ablaze, a fire begins to emerge, and blue flames begin to consume the forest, and Izuku sees something on a mountain nearby, and immediately begins to climb it, trying to get up to the top. And when he arrives, he sees something incredibly terrifying. It's Koda, and well, another villain by the name of Muscular. Muscular is a giant person, and he is on the break, ready to kill a child, to kill Koda in cold blood. But Izuku immediately dashes in, blocking the attack, slicing at Muscular's leg, and he continues to fight with the giant monster, it seems. This man is no human, it feels like. His strength is unmatched, and Izuku is falling behind quickly. He calls out to Koda and tells him to run now, that this isn't a choice, this is a matter of survival. So he basically tells Koda to leave, and luckily Koda listens. That was smart, kid. Now he doesn't have to watch you die. Die, huh? Yeah, it's looking that way. But don't get too cocky. Not yet. Moon breathing, first form, dark moon, evening palace. Immediately, Deku quickly draws his sword and slashes swiftly in this horizontal motion, and well, Muscular gets completely torched. It seems like Muscular gets slashed up pretty bad, and Izuku feels like he won. But that's not the case. Muscular stands up and smirks. Ooh, some paper cuts. Now, my turn. Muscular begins to grow in size, and he begins to look more like a monster itself. His muscles begin to bulge out, and it seems like, well, the muscles that he has begin to arise from outside or from inside to the outside of his body. And Muscular begins to charge at Izuku, and Izuku cannot dodge. He tries to use his concentration breathing and other forms to dodge, but it's like impossible. The man is too fast, and Izuku can't keep up. Immediately, Muscular grabs him and pile drives him into the wall, and Izuku is almost out for the count. He just sees a blur of his vision. He begins to fade in and out of consciousness, and Izuku sees that there's only one chance, one more opening, and when Muscular brings him in close to taunt Izuku, Izuku strikes. You know, kid, it's really the end, but it's sad to see you go. But I'll make sure to kill that other kid and send him to hell with you. As Muscular says this, Izuku strikes him in the neck with his sword and digs it deeper and deeper, refusing to let his sword go with his grip quirk. And he grabs Muscular's neck and makes sure that Muscular cannot move. The only way he'd move is that he would have to pull Izuku's arm off his body. Izuku's making sure Muscular cannot go anywhere, that he will fall right now. Izuku pushes his sword deeper into his neck, knowing that he might have to kill this man to make sure that he doesn't, do any more harm. And that's exactly what happens. But before he could finish, Muscular grabs Izuku's head and slams it into his knee, more or less giving Izuku insane brain trauma, and his brain begins to give out on him. Izuku and Muscular are down for the count, as Izuku is still holding the sword that is deep in Muscular's neck, and 30 minutes pass, and Aizawa and Vlad King find Izuku there, out cold, or at least that's what they thought. They walk over to him to find out that the boy isn't breathing. They have no idea how long he hasn't been breathing, and they run him out. They look at the dead body of Muscular and wonder what torture Izuku went through to force himself to do such a thing. And what they would find out later on is that Koda basically was the reason why Izuku pushed himself to the breaking point. Izuku believed that all the training led up to this, that his training meant that if he could save one person, his life was enough. But that's not the way Aizawa saw it. That's not the way Vlad King saw it. That's not the way anybody saw it. They didn't want Izuku to just fall like this, so they ran him to the hospital in hopes of saving his life. And, Izuku laid in that hospital bed, and he tried to come back to life, but the brain damage was there. It was unhealable. Everything in his being was gone. It was as if one knee from Muscular to the head made a frontal lobotomy and shut off multiple things in his brain and multiple passages, and it seemed like it was over for the young hero. Izuku, after weeks have passed, was put in a coffin, and they said their goodbyes. Izuku was only there for a short amount of time, but even Class 1B respected him. Someone who clawed their way all the way to the top, clawed his way all the way to the point that he knew he could be a great hero, and he was. Koda was there sitting by the coffin while they were saying their goodbyes. His mother was crying her eyes out. Izuku Midoriya was no more. The last person to know moon breathing was now dead. His old master stood there shaking his head, wishing that the boy had a stronger quirk, that this society isn't fair for people like him. Even with the powers of the ancestors, they don't compare to what is now. They don't compare to what's going on now. They all say their goodbyes. Flower after flower was put on the coffin of Izuku. But it felt so empty. Why was he gone? Was this fair? This world, it's not fair at all. But Izuku was in a new space and time, was in the afterlife, standing there, looking at somebody, looking at Kokoshibo, looking at him with his 6 eyes. Kokoshibo walks up to the boy and places his hand on his head. "You did your job, kid. Thank you. I'm back." Izuku is confused at what he's talking about, saying that they're both dead. How is he back? What are you talking about? That doesn't even make sense. It makes sense, kid. I'm back. Izuku's body begins to shake the coffin. Izuku's body begins to transform. Eyes begin to grow out of him, one after another. One after another. Now he has 6 eyes, long hair, and he arises from the coffin. Kokoshibo is back in the world, back with a vengeance. Demons are back, and Kokoshibo is going to make sure that his legacy is cemented in this world. The heir to the throne, the demon that was once just ranked below Muzan, the king of the demons, is now on top, is now the, strongest being alive. And Kokoshibo will make sure that this will continue on. He begins to travel around Japan, slaying hero, villain, everybody alike, and even inviting some to his cause. Death after death, it didn't matter. Kokoshibo was, making sure everything went his way. He wanted nothing but to have complete control over this world now. He wanted to do more. And now that he is connected with Izuku Midoriya, a boy that is, dead, now he can do exactly what he wants. Until one day he meets with somebody that is at Izuku Midoriya's grave, giving his respects. And that's the master that Izuku trained under. And he was saying his goodbyes to Izuku Midoriya, and Kokoshibo is right behind him, saying that Izuku Midoriya is dead, but he lives on within him. The master turns around and gets his head taken off, and, let's just say Kokoshibo continues his wrath, his path to glory, and his path to being the ultimate life form. He kills, murders, and destroys hero society slowly but surely. Even villains tremor in his name. Heroes alike would be terrified of the sight of him, and he began to slay everybody. All Might is not there to help, and frankly, nobody else stands a chance. The world is on notice. The world is under his tyrannical rule. Death after death, the future generations of heroes now all underground with Izuku Midoriya. This is the beginning of the end, but the birth of a new world. A world that will be, overran by demons. A world that subsided because of a lack of motivation. Subsided because of a lack of perseverance. The master, the one and only moon breather now that ever existed, it's still only Kokoshibo. Izuku was just a means to an end, was just there as a vessel ready to be tapped into, ready to be taken over. Kokushibo continues his tyrannical rule. Death after death. The hero society is torn to shreds by the blade of the moon breather. Torn to shreds until there was nothing left. Nothing but him and his loyalists. Now, he continues out through the entire world until he knows everything is his. And everything he wanted is now in his grasp. That's until a gap in the world begins to tremor, a gap begins to open. Kokushibo will not only make sure that his legacy is known in this universe, but he'll make sure that it's known in every single universe that is ahead of him.